Thank you.
The Honourable Phil Goff.
Mr. Speaker, in order to solve a problem, first of all, you've got to acknowledge that the problem exists. And sadly, sir, this government is still in denial. But in a poll that came out today, 84% of Aucklanders say that Auckland is suffering from a housing crisis. Worse than that, an astounding 31% of those Aucklanders say that they have contemplated having to leave Auckland because they can no longer afford to live there. Nearly a third of Aucklanders can't afford to live in their city of their choice. Mr. Speaker, there is a housing crisis in Auckland. Of course there is. House prices in the last 4 years have gone up by an astonishing 84%. We're just about touching $1 million for the average home, and the Kiwi dream of home ownership is being denied an ever-increasing number of Aucklanders. You know, it may be impossible to buy a home, but it's becoming hard even to rent a home for a lot of Aucklanders. Rents in the last year have gone up 6 times faster than the rate of inflation, and people are struggling to cope. I have seen the growth of homelessness in my city over the last year to a greater extent than I have seen at any time during my parliamentary career. But what has the government's response been? The first response, articulated by the Minister of Finance, was to blame Auckland Council. The second response, by the Minister of Social Housing and others, has been to tinker around the edges. That is not what Auckland needs. Auckland needs a central government prepared to cooperate with Auckland Council. It needs a central government prepared to take bold decisions, not simply tinker around and not make any difference. Now, I applaud the Auckland Council for this reason, Mr. Speaker. They have grasped the nettle, they have passed the unitary plan, they have enabled the building of 422,000 additional homes in the next 30 years. And what I say to the Minister is that the ball is now in her court and the Minister of Finance's court. Because what Auckland needs is a government response that addresses the supply side. We need more affordable houses. When I was Minister of Housing, a third of all houses being built were classified affordable. Now it's 5%. 5% of Auckland houses are affordable. The level of increase in social housing has been pathetic. In fact, we have the lowest number of social houses per capita in Auckland in 70 years. You've got to go back to the 1940s to see a time when we had a lower proportion of social housing in our city, sir. So we need the government to kickstart affordable housing. We need the government to provide social housing. We need the government to build on what I thought was quite a good idea, an infrastructure fund, but to build it to a more realistic level. $1 billion is 1/20th of the infrastructure that Auckland needs in the next 10 years, if the whole of the infrastructure fund went to Auckland. And then there's the demand side, sir. You cannot keep increasing the population of Auckland by 45,000 and not provide the infrastructure in housing and transport that the city needs. You shouldn't be letting foreign investors buy up existing houses, only forcing the price up, rather than directing them into building new houses. You shouldn't allow the rampant speculation where people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing nothing and giving the first home buyer a 50 or 60-year-old long-term mortgage. It is not fair. You cannot keep increasing the population of Auckland unless you're prepared to invest back into Auckland the money that the government is taking from those new arrivals in income tax, in GST, and company tax. The central government is getting the revenue from the growth, and Auckland City is meeting the cost of it. If Auckland fails because of poor infrastructure, New Zealand fails. And if Auckland fails, a third of the electors of this country won't thank any party in any government that allows that to happen.
Nook Karaka.